You're listening to the Fit Mind, Fit Body podcast, where we explore the connection between running and positive mental health. We do this by talking to runners from all walks of life who generously share their experiences with us. So you don't miss an episode, I've created an email list for you to join. Check the show notes for more details. Without further ado, I'm your host, Michelle Frost. Let's get moving. Welcome to this episode of the Fit Mind, Fit Body podcast. Today we talk to Steve Appleby. And when we chat with him, we find out what it looks like when you're retired and you're totally addicted to mountain running. Enjoy. Welcome to this episode of the Fit Mind, Fit Body podcast. Today we are speaking to Steve Appleby. Hello, Steve. Welcome.
Hello. Good. Thank you. Good.
I'm so glad that you chose to come on and said yes, because you were referred by someone else down in Hobart. Kate referred to you. So that's very exciting. And then, of course, like running normally is, especially in a small place like Tasmania, I was like, I'm pretty sure I've had a chat with you before, Steve. And we've
nearly always met.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm positive I've talked to you before at a couple of our runs that we've attended. So it's exciting to get to know more about you, though, because when you're at the start of a line, you do get to say, oh, yes, talk about the weather and the race ahead and things, but you don't always get to dig into, what work you've done or where you come from and all that sort of thing, which we'll get to do today. So,
yes, very good. Yes, let's go.
Okay. So tell me, Steve, where did you grow up?
I'm a Tasmanian. I grew up on the northwest coast. I grew up in Latrobe. I went to school in Latrobe and at Devonport. And when I turned about 19, I was working for a bank, working for the old Bank of New South Wales, and they transferred me to Hobart. Mm-hmm. So, and then I lived in Hobart for 8 years, got transferred, didn't run then back. That was all through my 20s. Okay. Didn't run. I tried to play cricket very poorly, more there for the social aspect of, Saturday morning going to the pub and having a few drinks afterwards sort of thing. Eventually then got transferred back to Ulverston on northwest coast of Tassie. And obviously there was no cricket then, so I started playing golf. So I was still getting exercise. If we're talking about running, but not necessarily running, but I was still getting some exercise, rode the bike to work sort of thing. Played golf then for 10 years and I wasn't overly good, but I had a handicap of about 9 or 10 for most of that, which is okay. Yeah. And that was back in the 1980s and 90s I'm talking about then. Yeah. So I got transferred to Launceston. There was no one playing golf when I got transferred to Launceston. And one Easter, so it was the 4-day holiday, 5 days actually in Tassie. We'd had, I think it was either Easter, Good Friday or Easter Sunday, I can't remember, it doesn't matter. Wife said, I've just had enough to eat, I'm going to have a lie down in the afternoon. So I thought, I'll just put the old shoes on, old Dunlop Volleys probably they were, and I went for a walk. Okay. Just a proper walk around the streets of Launceston where we lived in Newstead. Yeah. And I thought, this is easy. It was probably, I couldn't measure it, probably about 4 kilometres. Yeah. No idea, half an hour maybe. Mm-hmm. Maybe it was longer than that, 4 kilometres, Anyway, the next day I thought, I'll go again. I'll go for another walk. So I was half healthy and fit because I used to ride my bike to work, just a road bike. So, and then eventually around that, I joined the Launceston Athletic Club. So I was then, don't forget, I was probably in my mid to late 30s. So
what year are we talking about here?
1989, 1990, something like that. Mm-hmm. So I joined the Launceston Athletic Club and they used to run on Saturday afternoons. So
do you know, this is something you probably don't know this, but I joined the Launceston Athletic Club when I was 26. And I have since been president. I've only literally just stepped down as president. I have always been a member since. So that would have been 9, like I'm 52 now. So was a long time, in the 90s anyway. It was in the 90s. So I don't know how long did you stay with the club for?
I was only with them for about 1989. I got moved up there. So probably all of 1990, maybe.
Yeah.
1990.
Did you know David Cramp? Did you ever meet David?
Yeah.
So he got me into the club in the first place.
Right. Yeah. So anyway, that's all part of it. We used to run in out of Georgetown and Longford and Perth and Sidmouth and all those sort of places where I guess they started their.
Some of the runs still exist.
Yes, yes.
Some of them still do.
I can remember, I don't know whether they still do it. They used to have a Calcutta on some of the races.
So we have a Calcutta just the week before the feature race. So we do that for the feature race still.
Yeah,
we do a Calcutta.
Still do it. Yeah, we used to be able to buy a runner. I think somebody silly as they was put up $1 on me, and I put in $1 to buy myself at the Georgetown run. I think.
Wow.
I might have finished about 10th or something, but somebody thought I had a chance. But anyway, that's another story.
I love it. We do it more of a rather than a Calcutta now. Because a few years ago there was a lot of money in it. We did more of a pulling a runner's name like out of the hat.
Oh, okay.
So you put money into a kitty, and then it became more of that, so that there was less sort of gambling.
Yes, well, that was it. I was totally surprised.
It was like
totally surprised.
This is like horse racing.
Yeah, so
it's quite funny.
So that was the beginning of my running career. Having said that, my two younger brothers, only just a few years younger. But they lived on the northwest coast, but they were really good. They ran semi-professional, the carnivals, the Burnie Devonport Latrobe carnivals. They used to run those, so they could both run and fast, and faster than I would ever have been able to keep up with them, even if I was running at the time. So when they were in their 20s, mid-20s, I suppose, they were running 10K races, but they also ran at the carnival. So I mean, they were running 32 minutes for 10K, that sort of pace, but I was never, ever going to get to that speed type of thing. Anyhow, so it was in the family.
When you were kids, was sport a big thing? Like when you were at school? And
it was. Dad was right into football, but none of us ever played football.
Yeah.
Brothers did a bit of boundary umpiring and but we used to do, cross-country stuff at school and that sort of. Yeah, but that sort of drifted away when I got moved with work.
Yeah, as tends to happen. Do you remember if you enjoyed it much at school?
Oh, I love the cross country.
Yeah,
I love doing that. Yeah, representative of the school went down the coast and to the other schools, and especially the inter high school cross country type stuff. Yeah, and that was, and I look back now on that at the cross countries, which is why I do trail running, mountain running, that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And then when I was also at Devonport High School doing the equivalent of what is college now, it was called matriculation then, but it's college. I also did join the school bushwalking group. So that took me out into the mountains a bit as well. I would say my only claim to fame in bushwalking is I walked into the old Lake Pedder before it was flooded.
Oh, wow.
And I thought, looking back now,
so
that's one of the unbelievable sights. I remember the little planes coming in and landing on the beach, and then
my husband's family walked him in as a child as well before it flooded, and he raves about it, and they've got a family picture.
It was
or two
unbelievable. I probably didn't appreciate it at the time, but I can remember it now. I was about 16, I suppose, and this high school, the school bushwalking group walked in, and it was all part of it. That's awesome. So that sort of gets you into where I'm, without jumping ahead.
How old were you when you started then, like in the 90s, early 90s sort of thing, or late 80s?
Running part?
Yeah.
Oh, no, it was late 30s. I was a late starter into running, I mean, I knew it was in the family genes. I knew it was the brothers that ran. I couldn't see the benefit of it back when I was just a stupid 20-year-old, I suppose, 20s into 30s, drank beer with the guys after work and
just pretty average, really.
Golf.
Didn't have any reason to do it.
No,
just
and then that Easter kicked it all off, and then I could do it. I was pretty good at it. I mean, I was pretty good. I was okay. I didn't hurt. I think that was the story, was that I got into it, but it didn't hurt. I could do it, and and I read a lot of books about it. I had books from American running, trail running people.
Yeah.
Same as I did with learning how to play golf. I had a lot of Johnny Miller and Jack Nicklaus golf books, and I learned to play golf by reading their books and then practicing with what was that. And the same with the running. I had a lot of American trail running books because there wasn't much in the trail running part. And I'll just jump ahead. When I left Launceston, we bought a caravan and we toured Australia for 18 months, just the wife and myself, and that's all we had. We'd sold everything. We didn't even have a house to come back to.
Did you have children? Just before?
No.
Yeah.
And didn't, and still we haven't.
Yeah. So you travelled.
When we went away, I used to just go for a bit of a run while I was away, and there was some lovely beaches and all over Australia to do all that. And when we came back, we lived in Launceston for about a year, but there was no work in Launceston because I'd left the bank and left everything. And brother-in-law was living in Canberra at the time, so he said, "Come over here. There's plenty of work," and there was. So we packed up, which was not much, and went to Canberra, which is where I lived for 24 years. So,
oh wow!
And then, as the story goes, I joined the ACT Veterans Athletics, or Masters as it is now, and we were doing a Thursday night track session. The track we used to do track and field on Thursday nights there at the AIS. Yeah. Anyway, this guy came around called John Harding and walked along through the grandstand and said, "I'm starting up Australian Mountain Running Association. Do you want to join? $20. So we thought, why not? So, because I'd ran trail stuff. I'd gone away from running road, I don't run road stuff, anything now. I'd ran two Canberra marathons when I first got there, just to say that I'd done them. Yeah. And they were good. My best time was 3 hours and 50 seconds.
What?
Did not quite break 3 hours. I missed out. But in my defense, we didn't have GPSs then. At best you had was a stopwatch on your watch. So you used to run along calculating in your head while you were trying to run 4-minute kilometre pace. If I run, I've got, 12 minutes, 12 kilometres to go. So I got to 30 and I was doing these calculations. If I run 4 minutes and 15 seconds per kilometre for the next 5 or 8 or something, then I'll get to 40 Ks and I'll get to 42. And I forgot all about the 200 metres because I didn't have couldn't work it out. Anyway, the 200 metres was the 50 seconds that I failed at.
Wow.
Missing. In my defence, I couldn't
Sounds
run.
like you had runner's brain. Like that's what I like.
I can't run and think at the same time.
No, that's runner's brain. Oxygen is keeping you moving, not keeping your brain working.
As a sidetrack to that little story that's why I don't go orienteering or road gaining, because I don't want to think when I run. I want to chill out. Which is why I run trails, not on the road or on the streets or the footpaths, because I want to just be able to listen to the birds in the trees and listen to the rustle of the bushes and think, is that a snake? Is that an echidna? Is that just a lizard? Is it something going to attack me? So I want to chill out when I run.
That's interesting, because some people say, especially road runners, I can't run in the trails because I have to then concentrate on where my feet are landing, because I worry I'll trip over things. So it's quite interesting. Yeah.
I've fallen over hundreds of times. So
me too.
That's the last.
Just roll.
Yeah. But the roads are too hard and I've got to, think about other things so I can chill out on the trail. So go back to marathon running. I ran 2 in Canberra, then I ran a third one on the Gold Coast in 2000, and so 10 years later, 2005 or something. It was just a family get together with those other 2 brothers that were there.
Oh wow.
So I ran the marathon on the Gold Coast, which I'm a trail runner and I hated Gold Coast Marathon. It was awful as a course. And
I've done that one.
and I'll say that I ran my slowest marathon of the 3 that I did. I ran 3 hours and 8 minutes and gave up and said, that's the best I can. And the worst I'm going to do, I'm out of this game. And I went to trails and mountains. So that was it.
I'm moving to the hills. Literally.
I'm moving to the hills where it's easier. Oh, I hated that road.
Oh, that's hilarious.
It's just injury prone to get running on the road. It's hard. It's constant. It's the rhythm. It's all those things that road runners like, I hated.
So
and that was,
So since then, obviously, you haven't dropped running since then. So say
no, it's got worse.
the early 90s.
Oh no,
You've basically been a runner ever since.
Yeah, I haven't
That's
stopped.
what I'm hearing.
I have not stopped since then. No.
What would your favorite running be? I know you mentioned mountains and trails. And things
mountains
like
and trails. Yeah, no. And I will run anything that's not on the road. So I'll run, as I said, we talked about Greens Beach and running convicts and wenches as it was.
Yeah.
I could run 50 k's on the beach as well as I could run 100 k's, 100 k's on the trails and up and down mountains, which is I prefer at the moment to do. So
why do you think you're still running after all these years? Why do you think you stuck to it?
I realised a long time ago that when I retired that I had to have something to do. And I don't do anything. Like, I'm not a handyman type of person. I'll mow the lawns, but I don't like gardening type of thing. I couldn't, as I said before, go to the men's shed and repair bicycles. That's not I'm just not into that. It's not that I'm not into people. I'm not into doing those sorts of things. And then I also like when I worked, I always worked surrounded by a lot of people. When I worked in the bank for the first 18 years of my life, there were people everywhere, people you work with, customers coming in, there were always people. And then when I was in Canberra, I was a bus driver. So the same as your metro buses here.
Wow.
And I loved that job, absolutely loved it. I think I was born to do that job. That was just every day I wanted to go to work.
That's lovely.
I think I had about 5 or 6 days off work in 24 or something.
Amazing.
Other than holidays.
And
that was a couple of those were sick and.
Oh, that must have been a big loss when you.
I just loved the job. I always thought that was me. So again, you were always surrounded by people. You were people getting on. You only ever said hello, g'day, thanks for have a nice day type of thing. But it was always people coming. But then having said that, I'd work night shifts when you'd drive around the suburbs and carry no one and just turn the radio on and listen to music, and that was just as good. So I didn't care, But actually, journey. The driving was good. I loved that sort of thing. I liked the people getting on, the regulars, even the drunks at night, on a Saturday night. You'd turn the radio up, they'd get on, you'd have the music playing because you'd be listening to some oldie station, because I used to listen to oldie stations in Canberra, and the university kids would get on in Belconnen, for example, and drive down into the city at 10:30 at night with half skin full of beer and drinks into them, and then they'd say, turn it up, we want to sing, I love that sort of working with the
party bus.
The party bus. It was just so much fun. So you're sort of always surrounded by people. When then to switch off, I used to run, in my lunch break and that sort of, or I was doing shift work, and so I'd run in the morning, or if I was doing night shifts, I'd, or the other way around, if I was working day shifts, I'd run it at night after work, or in the lunch break, or in the morning before I started the night shift or something. So it was all part of.
Do you find that you have like a goal, as in you have a race that you're training for, or are you able to just say, I run whatever you run? Monday, Tuesdays, Thursdays, whatever. Or how does it look? I mean, and I assume it's probably changed actually over your lifetime well, over your lifetime of running.
As I've got older, the desire to run in races has dropped off. I just sort of, not that I'm not competitive, I just don't want to push myself to run in a race, I've sort of tended to now run just to, for peace of mind and keep myself entertained and to fill in half a day sort of thing.
I've started because I've had like a whole lifetime at Launceston Running Club, which was LAC, now become Launceston Running Club. So that's a lot of competition. So I now, any races I enter, I don't call them races in my head, they're events. I'm going to an event.
All events.
I'm not going to a race. I'm going to an event.
I do find it a lot easier to have a focus down the track. And now that might be 12 months away, it doesn't matter. But I do find it easier to then sort of have half a plan in my head as to what I need to do to get there. If it's only going to be a half marathon or a marathon or something, which sounds silly, if it's only going to be only a marathon, I don't really train up to it. I just sort of try and keep a fitness level sufficient to be able to go and do it with just a bit of fine tuning in the last, month or so. But if it was something big that I did in the past, I mean, I'm talking, multi-day things back in the past when I did them. I used to have a definite plan then. But at the moment, it's just, I don't know, it's almost my goal is to keep the Strava figures nice and neat,
Yeah.
And that's that's just a goal, just to keep my running weekly average where I want it to be, so that if I need to switch it up a little bit down the track, or if somebody rings up and says, do you want to go to Cradle Mountain, or do you want to go to Walls of Jerusalem for a day run, or to around the mountain here in Hobart, then I can just go and say I can do it.
Because you've got that base level.
Yes, I've got that base level. I don't want to be saying, oh, look, I'm good for an hour and a half because that's all the fitness I've got.
Yeah.
I'd like to be able to say 6 hours is nothing. 6 hours I can go and do as long as we don't go pill for pill. I can just
trundle.
Just trundle along, and without, and not only that, it's without killing yourself trying to do it.
Yeah.
You've got to remember, so keep saying to people down here, you're training for an event, but you're not actually training just to run, the Cananu Ultra down here. You've got to also be able to drive the car home when you're finished. You've got to be able to be, pick up the kids and tuck them to bed at night. You've got to be able to go to work the next day. If you cross the finishing line and collapse, two of those three things won't happen.
Yes.
You can't go to work the next day because you can't move your legs, or you can't drive home because you're too buggered, or there's more to training than just running the race.
Yeah, and you can, if you think about those things, you can plan for them and make them less likely to happen. All of the negative sides of that.
Yeah. So do you ring the boss up when you finished your race and say, look, I can't come to work for the next 2 days because I can't get up the stairs, or my legs have given out? You've got to do. There's more to training for a race than actually just training for a race. So I look at it that way and say to these people, look, I know we're going to go up these steep hills, and you might not like me today, but you will, the day after your race, because your quads won't be so sore that you can't go up and down the stairs. You've trained for it, so you can still. You're all right. Sure, you're going to be tired, but you're not going to be sore and injured.
Yeah, and you'll want to keep go. Like, there won't be that big break that sometimes you can end up having if you haven't trained for something specifically or as well as you could have.
So so a little bit of my training is all about consistency. It's not peaking for an event and then then taking 3 weeks off and then starting the training again. It's all about just keeping it level, keeping it simple. Nothing. Don't go and start doing things that are way out of your comfort zone when you haven't given you enough lead up time to get through.
What would be some of your highlights from your running over the last few decades?
I'll go back. I'll start at the top and work my way down. My absolute obvious highlight is, and it's still the cover page on my Facebook, cover photo on my Facebook page, is me standing outside of the Birdsville Hotel.
Yeah.
So
Birdsville.
the day I turned 60, which was now 10 years ago in 2 months' time.
Wow.
I started at the Maree Hotel, and I ran the full length of the Birdsville track.
And tell us how far is that?
520 kilometres.
Oh my gosh.
And only 520, but it did take 8 days. I mean, I only ran daytime.
Yeah. So how did you, was that like a challenge you set yourself, or is that
just me for something to do.
I love that.
Just something to do. So I ran about 70 Ks a day, maybe 8 sevens, not quite 70. The first day was 50 something, and the last day was 75. I think I averaged somewhere between 65 and 75 Ks a day, depending on which way the wind was blowing and how often we started, and what time we started, and what time we stopped for lunch, and what time we kept going. And when we stopped. So
What
that was
what did you learn from that, Steve?
absolutely everything. Absolutely. I love the outback. I like the desert. I like the flat, which is really contrary to what I'm doing now, which is running up and down mountains. But I like that open space with no one around.
Yeah.
No, it's just my wife with the caravan behind me, and there were two other people come with me. One guy from Brisbane. He used to run 10Ks with me in the morning, so he'd go up and then leave me and then run back to where we left the caravan, where we camped. So he'd do 20Ks in the morning. Yeah. And then they'd drive past me and then come back when they found a camp spot for us. And he'd come back, whatever it was, another 5 or 8 or 10Ks, and then run back with me at the finish. So he'd probably do 20 or 40Ks a day, and I'd do
50, 70 or whatever.
Yeah, 60 or 70. Yeah. And then another guy from Canberra also came, and he rode his bicycle. So he basically did the same sort of thing, but he was covering a little more territory. Oh. So I'd have company with those two people at various times, morning and afternoon. And then I'd have a break after lunch. I'd run by myself for about 2 hours.
Okay.
So that was my time. Then it was a little peace of mind. Mind you, the Birdsville track is dead flat. There's about 20 metres of uphill every 100K. It is dead open. The high point was going over Little Cattle Grid, which was half a metre high.
So then one of the reasons we've talked about running up and down mountains being so fun in many ways and better for our bodies is that you're changing all the time. Like it's not always that constant. So that Birdsville track must have been quite challenging on your body because there was no change apart from the cattle grid.
And not only categories, it was the corrugations, corrugation.
Oh, wow. Yeah, of course.
Things where the upsets the four-wheel drives driving along. It was sandy, soft in places.
Oh, wow.
Dirt. It's not sealed. It's all dirt road. And then you get the cars going past and throwing up their dust.
Yeah.
And the policeman at Marie said to me, you'll probably see, 15 people a day. Well, we were probably seeing 50 because it was in August. So it was the tourist season. We'd see heaps of people, and some would stop and chat and say, what are you doing and why are you doing it? And you must be mad, all that sort of stuff. But all that all came about because the guy in Brisbane that ran with me, I was lap scoring at Caboolture for a 24-hour race. This is back before electronic timing, obviously. So I used to do it manually.
I have actually done that before electronic timing.
All that sort of stuff. I used to lap time people running around a 500-metre track. So I did that. Anyway, as a present, he gave me a book by Ron Grant called With Wings Like Eagles, I think the book's called. Yeah. Anyway, Ron Grant ran around Australia as well, but he also ran the Birdsville track. It was the only time I'd ever, and it just clicked when I read it. All these come back. So I thought, I can do that. So I planned the whole thing from about 18 months out. But again, going back to the training and the focus on things, I actually thought, I'm going to do this on my birthday. So I had to work my way back to in the training plan.
Yeah, and
so how do you train for something that's going to take 8 days?
I have no idea.
So what you do is, so I thought, there's a 48-hour track on the track in Queensland. So I'll do that. And how do you train for a 48? You do a 24-hour run on the track. So how do you plan for that? You do a 12-hour on the track. So you do all the training leading up, but you don't actually train up to those events. You have your plan and you work backwards.
Yes. Yeah. I like that. I see that. I like the way you sort of slotted in the other events.
Yeah. You have to, you can't just go from running, you're doing your 20Ks on a Sunday to all of a sudden doing 70Ks every day for that. So anyway, that's how that sort of planned out. So the Birdsville track, that goes back 10 years ago and that's still unbelievable. I'd go and do that again tomorrow if I could. I'd love that. So anyway, the other one, I ran the down the Darling River then. That was a couple of years after that. In about 2013, I turned 60. So in 2015, I ran from Bourke down the Darling River, and we finished at Wilcannia. I was actually planned to run. So that's only 320, so that took 5 days.
Only 320.
Yeah. So that took 5 days. Again, running in the daylight, like you don't go out to those places to just do the run. You go out there for the scenery, for the people, or the lack of people, to see what was around. That was back before the Darling River had any water in it. Looked absolutely dreadful.
Through a drought.
Yeah, it was drought. It was
Drought
green.
time.
It was algae. There was no flow. It was terrible. But anyway,
what did you learn on that one? How did that feel different
that
from
was
the Birdsville track?
That was so much easier. I knew what to expect. We knew.
So that's why, because you'd done a multi-day sort of event. It felt like you knew what was ahead.
So you just learn as you go. We learned a lot from the Birdsville run. Like when you do the multi-day things, I think I talked to Amy about it once when she ran the John and Amy, when Amy ran the Tasmanian Trail.
Mm-hmm.
The first day is pretty easy. You're fresh. Your legs are okay. Second day, you start to feel a few sore spots, but you're getting a little bit. You're still sort of into it. Third day, everything settles down because all the, your body's adjusted to what you're doing. It knows that you're going to be getting out of bed and running at 7 o'clock in the morning, and you're going to how it's going to react. And after that, there's only tiredness. Other than that, everything's sort of settled down. So you learn that it's not going to be as hard as what you think, because you're not cruising along at 4-minute kilometre pace. You're running at 7-minute kilometre pace. So it's a bit like Pat Farmer running around Australia. Forget the Aboriginal and the voice part of it. He's doing 80 days for 80 kilometres a day type of thing. He's done it all before. He knows what to expect.
I've had him on this podcast actually.
I ran with him for the the first day he started out of Hobart. So
perfect.
And had a chat to him. Yeah, so it was really good. Just here in Hobart and going out towards New Norfolk. So but everything goes down after a while, and he can just back up and do it day after day because your body knows what to expect. And I've also been following this lady in America that's ran 32 miles or 50 Ks, 53 days per day for 200 days.
Wow.
Candice Burt, her name is, and it's unbelievably amazing. If you can find Candice Burt on Facebook.
Yeah.
She's also on Strava if you want to go and look at her. But
I could put a note in the podcast notes too. Go find her, and so other people can look her up too.
She's just finished it. She's just and her idea now of winding down is she's dropped down from running 53 Ks a day. She's dropped down to running some 42 Ks every day. She just didn't stop. She's winding herself down, easing back into it, because her body won't. It's in this big routine. It's just in it where you can't just come to a halt because your body's not used to it.
Yeah.
And that's what happens with ultra running of any description. Mine was getting into day 3 and everything's sort of in sync. It's in the rhythm. It knows what to do.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the part that you learn, is it's all about consistency. It's not about the highs and lows. It's all about, and if you're doing it for the right reasons. I mean, I was never going to finish. I was never going to run at the Olympics. I was never going to finish. I don't think I've ever finished first in a race either, but I've never finished last. It's all about that 90% of people that are going to finish in the middle of the pack.
Yeah.
And whether you finish if it doesn't matter if you finish 10th or if you finish 80th, it still means you're in the middle of the pack. And after that, it doesn't matter whether it's 20th or 60th, really, as long as you've enjoyed yourself and you've had a good.
That's right. It's the journey, isn't it?
It's the journey. It's all about the journey. It's not about the destination.
So what do you think keeps you running? What is it for the future that you see in your running? The benefit of running now for you in the future?
Well, I'll go back to the family part of it. Is I have to stay healthy enough to be able to look after the people around me. And to do that, I have to be, the mind has to be quite strong and stable.
So do you find your running helps you with your mind? Like that's a really important.
Yeah, like I need to I can accept. I like to run every day, but I run by opportunity.
Yeah.
I don't get hung up if I can't run at 9:30 in the morning because I'm retired, so I don't run at 6 in the morning. Put it that way. If I can't run at 9:30 in the morning, which is 9 till 10 is my preferred, or somewhere between say 8 and 10 when I start running. That's my preferred. That's the times I do it best.
Yeah.
But I don't get hung up if I can't run until 2 o'clock or 3 o'clock in the afternoon.
Yeah.
In which case I'll swap it to I'll call it recovery day and go for a walk.
Okay.
I might just go for a 4K, 5K walk in the afternoons if I can't. I did get a 8K run in this morning, although we were quite busy. I got that threw that in at 12 o'clock before I got organised to come with you, talk to you today. Otherwise, I would have just gone for a walk this afternoon at 4:30 and just called it, easy day, rest day, recovery day, whatever you want to call it, so that it doesn't play in your mind. I'm not obsessed with having to run every day.
Yeah.
And I don't necessarily object in my head to not doing anything if that's the way the day is.
Yeah.
But I just need to, and I call a 4K walk in the afternoon, which might take 45 minutes. Doesn't matter.
It's kind of interesting that you say that, sorry, because there's some of us, maybe it's different seasons in our lives as well, where we find it harder to stay motivated if we don't have that, something to train for or whatever it is. And it's not that we don't want to run. See, it sounds like I'm speaking for myself.
Yeah.
Oh, that's right, because
no,
I am.
You are.
It's right. Whereas now, I was going to say, and a lot of people who listen regularly will know that I started, I can look at my chart over there, 235 days ago, I started a running streak where I ran 2 kilometers minimum a day. Obviously, I do a lot more than 2 kilometers most of the days, but on the days which are my recovery days, I will still run 2 kilometers because for me in this season where I am now, I've worked out that's what keeps me motivated, like seeing that chart at the moment. Although now, as I told you, I've got a couple of hairy, scary goals in the next sort of less than a year. So then that also motivates me. But there's something about that while I'm going through a period of, I don't know what it is. But anyway, this season, that's working for me. So it's interesting. Like, I think we have different things work for us.
Yeah. And what works for you doesn't work. What works for me doesn't work for you. And some people, you can become obsessed without becoming infatuated. It's different. I'm not necessarily hooked on running every day because that puts undue pressure. It's a bit like running when I talk about Birdsville Track or the Darling River Run. I didn't do it with other people and I didn't do it raising money for charity because that would have put too much pressure on to succeed when I didn't necessarily.
You didn't need that.
I didn't want to accept failure, but I didn't want to let other people down by necessarily if something had gone wrong because I was delving into the unknown.
Yeah.
Pat Farmer running around Australia with his voice thing, he knows he can do that because he's done it before.
Yeah. So
he's not
that level.
He hasn't got failure in his mind because he's done all these things before. When he ran from North Pole to South Pole, all those sort of
crazy things.
But to me, I was going into the unknown, so I didn't want to be putting pressure on myself.
Yeah.
So going to like you're doing your running streak.
Yes. But it's only 2K, so I felt like I can fit that in most days somehow. Occasionally, it's not that easy, when you're traveling because I tend to move around a bit. But I just get up. I could do that in 15 minutes almost anywhere. Like it's kind of that sort of thing. So I made it kind of so there wasn't as much pressure as you might. In the old days, going for a run or putting my running shoes on and not doing 5K just seemed a waste of time. But now I've moved past that season. I'm into a different season.
So if you're getting into that, does the weather come into that? Would you do it on the treadmill and call it 2K as opposed to going outside and doing it?
If
2K?
I had a treadmill, I might, but I don't. I don't have a treadmill. So yes, I put a raincoat on and I did that last week.
Suck it up and say that's cold and wet, but I'm still going to do it.
I had root canal last week and I was like, before I go into the dentist, it was in the morning, like early, like 8 o'clock. That's it. I'm going to go. And it rained. So I ran in my raincoat because I didn't want my hair to get too messy before.
Before you went to the dentist.
Because I didn't have time to have a shower. So I just, and it was only going to be 2, so there was, I just fit it in. I guess that's what I'm trying to say. I find a way that I can fit in 15 minutes most of the time.
Even the ads on TV to say, you know, these unhealthy people, you too can find 15 minutes somewhere, even if it's only, you know, watching TV and sitting on the treadmill or on the running.
What works? I was a teacher once, Steve. I'm not anymore, but I was once a teacher, and I think star charts and things like that. Like I'm looking to my right because I have a chart that I cross it off. So that is like very much a motivator for me. Like it works for me to be able to cross that off at this moment. So as you said, whatever it is that works for other people at that time, knowing that what worked when you're a kid may or may not work now. What works, 10 years ago may or may not work for you now.
Yeah, a lot of outside influences come into it. I mean, you know, like sometimes, especially if you're dealing with people that don't really understand you or what your journey is. And that comes with, I mean, in my case, comes with being surrounded by people that are unhealthy and don't really care about their own and expect the doctor to fix them, which is fine.
And they potentially think 5K is a marathon.
Oh, 5Ks is just, you know, the letterbox is a long way, you know, like, do I have to, you know, yes, I can go and get the letters, but how am I going to get back inside? You know, that's a long way. Like, can you bring me a cup of tea halfway and we'll have a rest? No, not quite, but you understand.
I do, yeah.
But then if someone has to be around to look after those people that can't look after themselves, so that's just the, you know.
You've chosen to do that as part of your purpose.
Well, it's not. It's just that those people around me, they're the ones that I want to look after me in my old age. When I get to old age, I mean, 70 old yet.
Will you not still be running?
Well, I hope so. But if
exactly.
I'm not, the thing was, what was it, about 4 years now? Coming up 4 years ago, we were running on the Cascade track here on a Wednesday night, Thursday night. No, it was a Friday night. We're doing a Salomon shoe trail thing in the dark. Anyway, long story short, I hit my head on a tree and knocked myself out and broke my ankle.
Oh.
So, 3 days in hospital and, you know, a bit of surgery and whatever. But the problem was that when I came home, you know, the ankle was fine and I'm still running, if not more. And that's one of the things too. If you have a little bit of a setback, there's a bit of a side to that story. If you have a bit of a setback, you start to realize what you miss in life. You know, what you miss if you can't do what you're doing now, what would happen. And that was where I sort of was motivated with the rehab. You know, I broke my ankle. It was a clean bone break. I've still got the little plate and 6 screws in my ankle. They're still there. But I realized that if I didn't get the rehabilitation right with that, then and I couldn't run, what else could I do? Well, I couldn't really play because of the flexibility of my ankle was not as great as it used to be. It's still fine, but to run. But I thought, well, if this doesn't heal up properly, I can't go back to golf, for example, because, you know, the twisting and the walking. So I thought, oh, well, I can't play golf. What else could I do? Oh, I can't go back to bushwalking because the ankle may not be strong enough to carry, you know, a 20-kilo backpack. And the ground terrain would be just as rough as rocky as running mountain trails. So I had to put the focus into getting the rehab right. I mean, I was lucky because there was no tendon damage and very little anything else went wrong with my foot other than scar tissue forming around the breaks and the bones, and, you know, and that's not flexible either. So I went pool running about 30 something times. That was
deep
good
water
fun.
running. It looks so silly. I had a deep water running belt. I lent it to someone and I have not got it back, which is fine.
Well, I was lucky I didn't have to use the pool in Glenorchy I went to was 1.3 meters deep. So you could actually walk along the pool.
Wow.
20 meters long or 25 meters long.
Yeah.
So you could actually walk without having to have a weight, you know, a flotation vest, to keep you up. So that was, again, I thought, you know, I started to feel sorry for myself, and then someone suggested pool running, which I went to, as well as the other exercises the physio gave me. Then I went into pool running. I realised that I was probably in the best shape of all the poor out of shape people. There were people there getting over having strokes, heart attacks, all other kinds of physical things that were wrong with them. And I thought, I didn't feel sorry for them, but they were there doing absolute best they could to get back to doing what they wanted to do.
Yeah.
And then at the same time, it was so good because the lady doing the aqua aerobics for the people in the other pool, you know, the music was playing and they were doing their aqua aerobics. And then over the back of that, there was the mums who just had the little bubs, and they were getting the little bubs were getting, getting used to the water. Oh, it was so good. I really missed not going. You know, I went 30 odd times, I think I said, and by the time I didn't have to go anymore, I sort of started to miss it. Just the people there, and it's all realizing if something goes wrong, and it will, and it's a bit like falling over and skin coming off your knees or something. It's all part of the process. It's all part of the learning. It's all part of, how you go about the sport that you do. And, the sport that we do is not easy.
No.
Trail running and mountain running it's not easy, but the more you do it, the better you get.
It's kind of simple too, though, because it is that one foot in front of the other, isn't it? And you're out in nature and you're kind of doing what we're built to do. Like there's an element of, humans are made to run, because if we didn't, as I've said so many times, we either didn't eat or we were eaten, so we had to run, and it was just part of our development and what we are now. And we didn't have, footpaths and roads to run on. We did run in mountains and on trails and things. So.
And I think that's part of why, for me, I run these days with a Garmin, GPS. But that's all. I don't run with music. I can't run and listen to chill out things. I don't listen to podcasts. I don't listen to music because, one, I don't think the things that stain me ears. And two, I like to do the chill out, listen to the birds and watch out for the snakes and goannas and echidnas, on the track. So
just be there in the moment.
Be there. So sure, it's going to get tough going up some of the hills. And I find, I'm a hill person. If you look at my Strava, it's all about going up and down. It's all about vert. It's all about going up and down hills. I'm not really that good on the flat anymore. I just go up hills. I don't think.
Do you like when you get to the top? Do you like that you get a view sometimes, or that's one of your goals?
Yeah, you go for the scenery. Yeah, go for the scenery. Absolutely. And once upon a long time ago, someone said, back when mountain running started in Canberra, somebody said, "How did you know you were ever going to be a mountain runner?" Because I said, I look at a hill and I think, I wonder where the track is that goes up to the top.
Wow.
Does the track go straight up the front, or is it zigzag across the front, or is it around the back and a fire trail, or is it, I look at a hill and think, how do you get to the top to
Heart mountain goat, really?
Study the scenery, It's not, you don't get that running around the suburbs, unless you're running down by the river somewhere, which is quite nice. There's nothing wrong with that, or running along Greens Beach and Baker's Beach and Port Sorell and back, which is absolutely stunning. There's nothing wrong with that at all. I've done it. But it's different. Yeah.
I set myself a challenge a few years ago with a couple of other people who were all the way around the world. There was actually no one else in Australia at the time, but we set our challenge to do a trail sort of 60K. We had to make our own route, and my route actually was from Port Sorell. So I ran from Port Sorell around the roads into the national park at Baker's Beach, and then I ran the rest of what's now Run Narrawontapu. So that was 60K by the time I did that. So that was kind of a fun sort of challenge. You're talking about doing the interesting challenges that no one else is doing. It was really fun.
Well, see, it's a bit like the challenge that I did in back in March, was the Australian Himalayan Foundation raised money for the school kids in Nepal, the education, where the schools were knocked over down by the earthquake about 2013 or 2012 or something like that. So, and that all started in Canberra way back when the mountain climbing and the mountain running people from the Australian National University started this running up and down the mountains to the height of Mount Everest.
Oh,
So I did that with the young kids.
That's awesome. I heard
It
someone
was-
about doing that the other day.
Yeah,
I
it was
read
called
something about that, about Mount Everest run, where somebody was
so it's
doing that.
so it's all it was all called the Everest Challenge back then, but
Okay.
and then it sort of took a bit of a hiatus when the COVID came on, and they've now called it the Summit Challenge. So instead of doing the height of Mount Everest in a day or 29 hours, we had to do the 8,848 meters. They've now they do it over a month. So it's sort of like a virtual challenge. You do it in your own time, but you spread it over a month. So you can either do base camp, which is 5,000 something meters, Mount Everest, 8,800, or you can do the triple, which is the three highest mountains in that little region. So back in March, I did the triple, which is 25,200 and something meters of climbing in the 30 days in the month.
Amazing.
But to get that, you have to do, 420 Ks or something like that in the month, and the 25,000 meters. But in that, it put me second in Australia of the people that did it, behind 3 people in New Zealand. It was Australia, New Zealand one.
Yeah.
So that was, I was 5th overall out of the people from there. But it also won the Strava climbing challenge. If you put your stuff onto Strava, I was 55th in the world out of 230,000 for climbing meters. I was first in Australia overall by a lot, and I was also first in the world in my age group by
a lot.
A lot. And I'm always, it's getting older. I can only compare myself with my age group now.
Yeah.
So in the Strava monthly climbing challenge, and this is just what motivates me as well a little bit. It's just a challenge, just a
little thing on the side.
Yeah, I'm competing against a lady in Norway, a guy that lives in Colorado, some guy in Hong Kong. Hong Kong's hilly. And I always finish about the second or third or fourth or something in my age group in the world. So it's just it's the challenge and the motivation to sort of go, oh, it's getting towards the end of the month. I'll just see where everybody else is. If I just do a bit of a run around up and down the hills here, I can go from third to second in the world, and hope that it's winter over there, so we were running in summer, so that means that some of their mountains were closed off and they could
That's
you
crazy.
can have a good month when there's 31 days and have a bad month in February when there's only 28.
That's so you're probably very happy you don't live like in the middle of Australia then, over the Birdsville track, because you wouldn't be able to compete, would you?
But I was into mountain running, but it was just, I can mix it up,
Yeah.
And having said that, I'd go and do a 12-hour or 24-hour track race again around that wouldn't worry me either. So on dead flat running around the circle.
So often on the podcast, we delve a little bit into your identity around running, and your, like, if you have an injury, how that affects you. Now we've kind of touched on that anyway, because you brought up your ankle injury.
That's my only injury though.
Is it really your only injury? That's amazing. And it was really a tree injury rather than a running injury.
I hit my head on a tree, and because I'd half knocked myself out, there was a whole group of people with me. There was no danger. I hit my head on the Cascade track. I knew it was there. It's the second one of a series of 3. You're supposed to duck your head. It was in the dark. I didn't duck enough, hit my head, partly knocked myself out. And in the fall, obviously when the body goes limp because you're unconscious for a split second, the way I fell was that there was no support in the ankle. I've landed on it the wrong way. Yeah, I've landed on it or it's gone sideways and it broke. But other than that, and I go back to consistency and running every day, or at least doing something, or a little bit of cross training, get your recovery right. I've never been injured. I've been to a physio once, except for the getting over the injury from the ankle.
Yeah.
And that was running in the Glasshouse Mountains once at 2:00 in the morning doing a 100-mile race, and I pulled a little ligament in the back of my knee at 130 Ks into 160 and couldn't finish. That was a bit annoying.
Are you really careful about the shoes you choose and things like that?
Yeah, I find once I find a pair that suit me, I
Mm.
stay with them. I don't. I mean, I've got 2 or 3 pairs that I've got in the rotation.
You
So
rotate, yeah.
yeah, it depends on how grippy they need to be or what I'm running on. Or today I worked because it was just on the gravel around, and I just wore a pair that was sort of, I suppose you'd call them your midweek trail run, midweek.
Yeah.
They're about half, 3/4 worn out, but if you're running on soft surface, then your shoes don't really matter. Having said that as well, I love running on the if I go to the grass, go to the oval up at Cadbury's, for example, or when I lived in Cornwall in the ACT, there's a grass running track. I'd run bare feet.
Yeah.
Bare feet on sand and bare feet on grass is really good for your feet.
Gives me blisters. I'm
No,
sorry.
no.
I got blisters running on the sand. I think 5K I ran on the sand one time.
But I've worked that out. My theory with running on in bare feet is you've got to curl your toes down a little bit to get a grip to push off your foot. So that strengthens your plantar fasciitis part of your arch of your foot. So that strengthens your Achilles, which strengthens your calf. So you don't get it stops injuries.
Oh, that's interesting. Yeah,
that's my theory, and I may get shot down by.
And you're sticking to it.
And I'm sticking to it, and it works, and it doesn't hurt. And in fact, I can run faster around the grass track bare feet, 5Ks, than what I can run to do a 5K park run than on a Saturday.
Oh, that's
with
awesome.
Shoes on. And I don't know why that is. I have no idea.
That is, I'm sure there's
don't understand.
Something about our, biomechanics and things like that that make that.
But I love running. Love running bare feet on the grass or up the beach. Doesn't matter.
Actually, back to being a kid, doesn't it? I think it was just over that distance.
Yeah.
The distance thing where I think it was the rubbing of the sand on the bottom of my feet at that particular time.
Yeah. If I go down to 7 Mile Beach here in Hobart and run, up and back, which is about 15 k's, it's about 7 or 8 k's each way.
Yeah.
But if your feet get hot or get a bit scratchy, then you just run a little bit in the water and it cools your feet down. It feels better, and I can scoot along there again faster than I could run it in a pair of shoes. But I don't understand that. That might be mental as well. That might be just a.
You just
it's very relaxing, running along the beach like that is so relaxing, especially if it's a warm sunny day and no one else around. It's just so easy.
So, Steve, what sort of things are you thinking about when you go for one of your runs?
Somewhere between nothing. Somewhere between nothing and solving the world's problems. I'll quite often come back and walk in the front door and I'll say, I've been thinking, and the wife will go, oh no, what this time? Uh-oh. And most of the times you've come in with a half decent suggestion because you've had a fair while to sort of mull it over. It might be, where are we going when we go out next time to, for dinner somewhere?
Yeah.
Where we go, or it might be where we're going on the next holiday, or it might be, it could be anything, But most of the time I come back and I don't think about anything. And that's, again, why I don't like orienteering and row gaining and those sort of things, because I have to think.
Yeah.
And running to me is the chill out time. So a lot of it is just nothing.
So you retired from being a bus driver in Canberra and came back to Hobart.
Yeah, family here.
That's sort of how it went.
Here.
Yeah, okay.
Wife's family here, which is we're Tasmanians. My family, my 2 brothers, or 1 brother, and other family live on the northwest coast.
Okay.
Wife's family live in Hobart.
Yeah.
My other brother lives in North Queensland.
Yeah.
But Jenny wanted to come back to Hobart to be with her family, and as much as I would have stayed in Canberra for the rest of my life because I loved it there, we didn't have any family, and she wanted to come back to be with hers, and it's proved to be the right thing because like they were getting old, getting sick. We went to a lot of funerals when we in the first 3 or 4 years of being down here, which was
sad.
It was just the way it goes, but I'm glad we're here. And having said that, once you get used to living down here, as long as you don't expect long summers, but if you don't expect summer, then that's a good spot to live. And I've got a dirty great big mountain behind me too.
And you can go up
go
whenever
up
you
and
like,
down whenever I want.
which is beautiful.
This doesn't get closed off for running when the rains come or it's the snow, or you just put the gear on and I love going up there in the snow.
So
much as
now you're retired. What do you fill your days with? I know obviously you go for a run. What do you do? I often hear, like, most of my friends are retired. A lot of my friends are older than me, which is weird. And they all have retired and they say, I don't know how I fit it in work.
Well, I'm probably about the same. And I don't,
always things to do.
I know the day I finished work, I went straight over to the government shop front and said, here's my license. You can take the O classification off my license, which is the authority to carry passengers. I can still drive the bus, but I can't carry the passengers.
Okay. Yeah.
Because I just wanted to cut that working part out of it and not think, if I was in Hobart, I could probably go down to Metro and say, do you want someone to work casual and, to fill in the day? But I didn't want to do that. So, no, there's always something, like today, we've just been shopping, went down to the brother-in-law's, took some stuff down to him. The guy from Taswater was here checking the meter. So he's got that. I've still got, I've blown the tail light, on the car. I've got to get a mate from down the street who's a runner to come up and have a look at it. So, and this is, and talk to you. Today's been busy. Tomorrow I'll go running up the hill. By the time I come back and download the photos and the Strava stuff, it'll be time. It'll be
I'll have lunch.
I won't have time for lunch till 3 o'clock. Lunch
Sorry,
is never until 3 o'clock.
Too busy for lunch.
Too busy for lunch before 3 o'clock.
That's hilarious.
My brother's got to go out tomorrow night, so he's got a dog that's a bit needs attention. So we'll go down and sit with the dog for a couple of hours just to fill in time. So he's only just 5 or 6 k's down the road.
Yeah.
Wednesday there'll be something to do. Wednesday night I'll go to Hobart Trail Running, so that's at 6 o'clock. So that'll take. There'll be something in the morning. Bearing in mind, if you're retired, you don't have to get out of bed till 8:30 in the morning or 9 o'clock.
So your day starts a little bit later.
Your day starts a bit later, and Thursday I'll go for another long run up in the mountains. So, I do a lot more running now because I can do it, and I've got more time than I ever did before. I probably won't say I won't do more running. I'll probably put in the same number of hours, but the distances are less, but the amount of elevation is more than what I did when I lived in Canberra. So where I used to run 100 k's a week there, I'll probably average at 80 k's a week now.
And do you run much with people? You've mentioned a few times different clubs and running with people.
And it's difficult through the week because everybody's still got to go to work.
What?
I don't know.
Shocking.
Work. But that's when I try to stay in contact with the group. So I'll try and go on Wednesday nights to the Hobart Trail Running sessions. I do go to park runs on Saturday morning.
Yeah.
And then do a hilly run directly after that, normally over at Risdon.
Okay.
I'll run up the mountain and Mount Direction and after the 5K park run.
Yeah.
And then I'll try and on a Sunday morning is when I'll try and meet up with some other people if there's anything not like the run on Sunday. Everybody from Hobart was up north, so at the Greens Beach. So I had a solo run on Sunday, but normally there'll be something going on a Sunday that I can go to. But otherwise, I don't see any other people that with my, I've got to, sort of hang around with family or, and I'm quite happy with, sitting at home and having a very quiet, calm day at home with wife. So it's funny how the days sort of, I've never been bored while I've been retired.
Yeah,
there's always something to do, and then I've got to, just the pottering around at home type of thing.
Yeah.
And we've got a caravan which we'll take away whenever we get a chance to do that. So that might be. We didn't probably do as much as we probably should with it, but we do get away, every 6 weeks or 7, 8, 2 months.
Yeah.
Might go to North West Coast and up East Coast or somewhere. And then occasionally we'll just go for midweek we'll just say where we're going for lunch today, and from Hobart we might go to the Great Lake Hotel, we might go to Strathgordon, we might go down to down the Huon somewhere, we might go to Orford or Beechenau or somewhere just for lunch and come back again. I'll go for a bit of a walk just to stretch the legs and call that exercise day.
Beautiful.
So again, if we do that, I don't get obsessed with the having to run every day type of thing. I can just go for a walk, and it might only be like your 2K, you know, it might only be down somewhere and just enough to record something to put on Strava or a Facebook photo, and it's to make, it's a bit like running midweek when you get a chance to go up into the snow, you know, and you take your photos, you put them all up, and just to make people that are at work all jealous that I had a chance.
So not to inspire them, but just to make them jealous.
Just to make them jealous. Oh, just to make them envious about what you can do when you know.
Give them something to look forward to.
You finish work and you can do this because it happens midweek, and by the time the weekend comes around, the snow's melted and, you know, you missed out.
Or you've got to share it with everyone else who's only got the weekends.
Geez, yeah. Well, it's not only that, I make my my brother who lives in Cairns jealous because he's a Tasmanian and won't come back to live here because it's too cold.
Yeah,
but he's married to he won't move. But his wife, who lives in Cairns, born and raised in Cairns, would love to come to Tassie to live down here, but he won't come back. So,
really?
So I put them up to make, you know, to make her jealous that this is what you could put up with, but
you're missing out on.
Just then to upset my brother because they just, I love doing that just to. They understand that. So.
That's hilarious.
But, you know, it's just, there's always something to do when you've retired. And as I said, I don't think I'm anywhere near, you know, sitting at home bored or going to the men's shed, because I just haven't got, or working part-time or anything, you know, or casual. I haven't got for that. There's always something to do.
How long do you think you'll run for, Steve? I know we kind of touched on that earlier.
It's at the moment I'm still physically quite capable of doing all of it, you know, doing more than all of it. I've always thought, no, I'd like to cut back, and because and it's not getting too hard. It's just getting, I don't know what the word is, you know.
Yeah.
It's not too hard. It's just, it's not even a chore. I don't know. And then I think, no, but what else am I going to do?
It's probably the change thing. I think there is something, I know we say people are scared of change, but I think people actually also, it's not bored either. It's not necessary, or maybe it's an element of that, but you want a little bit of change. And sometimes the, you know, being able to do trail running, I think actually gives you some opportunity where you go running, even if you go to the same place every time, the weather will be different, the path will be different, you know, things will have, it's probably never exactly the same just because of the way nature is. So I wonder whether, you know, it is that element of, okay, I've been doing this for a long time this way. Is it time for it to change it up? It doesn't mean you're going to stop running. It just means you
I think
do
spend a lot of time thinking about different places to go. You know, there's obviously, it doesn't matter where you live. This, you know, where I go behind home here, it's a 5-minute drive because I'm too lazy to run, you know, the 4 kilometers to start the trail. So I take the car. It sounds really silly as well. I'm too lazy to run 4 kilometers. So I take the car and then go and run, you know, for 4 hours. And then I'll in the car to drive back home again.
I've definitely done that, don't worry.
Yeah. But I do also think, because there was a girl put up on for Sunday, so yesterday, just said she was in Hobart. She wanted to start a run. She was going to go for a run over way past Ferntree over on Betts Road, going up over near Mount Montague. And I thought that'd be good because I've been there. I know where to go. Yeah. But I thought that's an hour and a half drive each way from my place.
Yeah.
To get there. So that's 3 hours out of my day.
Yeah.
And
before
to go and do a 4-hour, it's to go and do a 4-hour trip. It's not a run because there's a lot of climbing and, you know.
Yeah.
So to do a 4 hours, so that's 7 hours out of my day.
Yeah.
I could pinch 2 of those 2 traveling hours out of the 3, and that would make a 6-hour day for running.
Yeah.
You know, instead of driving.
Yeah.
Although it would be somewhere different. So
yeah,
I just did sort of drove closer to here and just added on more than what I would normally have done on a Sunday, and called it, part of that was the travelling that I didn't have to do to go the other side of Hobart to start running. So,
Okay.
That
worked out.
From home, I could have been at Mount Field and ran up there on Sunday quicker than going to the other side of Hobart to run the same thing with somebody else. So it's funny how that goes through your mind
It
as to
is,
what,
it is.
I can do more
Your
running
plan.
by travelling less if I get the day right.
Yeah. I mean, and at other times, the desire to go do that run that you just talked about would have overweighed the amount of time. It just depends what you're at in your head at the time, isn't it? It's interesting.
Other times I would have said, look, I'm getting out of bed at 5 o'clock in the morning.
Just so I can do that. Yeah.
Just so I can go and do it. And then there's other times I think I just can't be bothered driving for an hour or an hour and a half to get there to do it, to drive it, come back home again.
It's like which bit's actually logical, like, in your head.
Yeah.
Because you could probably convince yourself the opposite as well. It's just where you're at that
exactly.
time.
And sometimes I don't understand. I'd never used to be able to understand why people would drive all the way from Hobart to Greens Beach to run the 12K and then drive all the way back.
Yeah.
In the past, I would have thought, what's the longest event that's on? If I've got to travel from here to, or from wherever, from here to Greens Beach to run, I might as well run the 50. Or at least run the 25, but I'm not going to drive all the way from here to there to run 12K.
It'd be at least 300 kilometres, wouldn't it?
Yeah. But having said that, I would have, in my head is, I've never done Wynyard Park Run, which is only 5K, but
if you want to tick off that park run.
If I wanted to tick it off,
that's right.
I'd do that, which is really totally illogical.
I was talking to someone on the weekend about a pretty illogical type. If you use some of those as your measurements of ticking off park runs. Some people who decided to delay their return from Melbourne because there was a new park run opening up in Adelaide or somewhere, and so instead they booked more like just spur of the moment, booked accommodation, rebooked their flights, so paid. It cost like an extra $1,000 or something just so they could go and do another tick off another park run. And then it actually got worse, I think he said. And then, believe it or not, my wife was really wanted to do I didn't even realize there was. It was like if you do one park run at least in every state or territory, that's a thing as well. And so they'd got all of them except one, and there was one in the Northern Territory. So before they came home, they flew to the Northern Territory and did that one as well. So it's like, okay.
It's a bit like, I can't get it taken with, I mean, I'll do a park run just as because it happens to be a Saturday morning, I'll go and do a park run. I'm not totally obsessed with park runs, but I'll do them if I'm there or whatever. And then you can do the alphabet, the alphabet.
Exactly. Yeah.
You realise that there's all the alphabets are in, you can do them except X, there's no X. So there's 25 alphabetically park runs to do.
It's crazy.
But I mean, it's part of, I can go and do, I sort of try, in my head, I've planned these sort of, I've got to do Burnie Park Run, Wynyard Park Run, because they're together. And then I can go and do the new Wilder Trails, Find Your Feet badge run at Rocky Cape. So I can do that. You could do that in a, Saturday to Saturday with something, do that in the middle of the week. But you can do the same thing as Orford Park Runs, the new St Helens Park Run, and do something at Freycinet, for example, or Maria Island, was one of the Wilder Trails badge runs, and make a trip out of that for a week.
Batch it all together.
Back, a little back to back, 8 days away. And so if you planned a little bit, you don't have to do a lot of back traveling. But
what does your wife think about all your running?
I've always struggled to find out what the right words are for it. She's not a runner. She's a couch potato, and a lot of people run with opposites in their family. So I'm the runner. She doesn't. What would you say? She's probably tolerated it without being enthusiastic about it. That's not even the right words. Without being, she's never stopped me. But she's never encouraged it.
Okay.
But if I've said we were going to go to, especially in Canberra, when we used to say, when I was on the Birdsville Track Run or the Darling River Run, or gone to Queensland to do some Glasshouse Mountains runs, she would have said, "Oh, here we go." But what do I need to take? You know, how many days meals do I have to cater for? What sort of food do you want? And she wouldn't stay at home while I went by myself. She'd always come with me.
Yeah.
But she's never interested in the running side of it. She knows all the running people that I know. She's met them, or if I talk about somebody, she knows who they are.
Yeah.
But she's not
interested.
Not interested in the running side of it.
Yeah.
She's been interested enough in the traveling side of it, you know, to go and go to these places. And you know, like now after all these years of traveling, and especially when we did the Round Australia trip, if we watch a travel show on TV or a four-wheel drive show on TV, a lot of the time she can say, "Oh yes, we've been there and we've been there and we've seen that." And you can remember that at, you know, that old bus at White Cliffs, or the something or other at Broken Hill, or the or the Mungarania Hotel halfway up the Birdsville track or somewhere, or the pub at Tilpa, or somewhere down the Darling River. Or remember when when they had the horse jumping at Caboolture, or, you know.
Wow.
It's all part of that, but she's not in the actual running side of it. That never been interested in that side of it.
Yeah.
So tolerated is probably the right word, without being enthusiastic or pushy, or, you know, she's never said, "I think you should go for a run today," or "Bean, what time do you want to be going?" Unless she's got something else planned and she's trying to work out when I say I'm going to need to go for a run in the afternoon or in the morning, or
like her own
if we've got to go. Yeah. So if I sort of work around what other things have got to be done, I think sometimes I've said my favourite time to run is between 9 and 10 in the morning.
Yeah.
But if we have to go shopping or do something else, I'll go in the afternoon.
Yeah.
Or she'll say, you going running this morning because I need to go to do something in the afternoon, or I've got a doctor's appointment, or we've got to drop into the, you know, visit somebody. Then we'll work around it. You know, there's never an argument over it, or, you know, discussion even over it. It's just a matter of
that's what
it all coming together. Yeah. She knows what I do. I know that she needs to go somewhere. And back when when we first came to Hobart to live, her sister, who was older than her, and she's passed away since then, but we came back, and I used to say to her, "Do you want to go down to your sister to be babysat while I go for a run up into Losa, or, you know, or do you want to go and visit someone while I go for a run somewhere?" You know, so she'd be full of, you know, drop me off, and how much time have I got, you know?
Yeah.
Oh, a couple of hours. Is that all right? Yeah, fine, you know.
That's awesome.
And that was sort of how I learned the trails, was just going running, because I could drop my wife off with somebody that she hadn't. The reason we came back to Hobart was to be with her family. So her sister was alive at that stage. So that
gave her the opportunity.
To sit down with and have a, you know, you don't want me there listening to you talk. So I was quite happy to, you know, get out of the way, and, you know, she could they could have a sit and have a family discussion talk, which I didn't really want to be part of, but, you know.
Exactly.
That's boring to me, sitting talking family stuff. Oh,
that's
gee,
funny. That's funny.
Yeah, that's terrible. But,
we can probably all relate in different ways, I think.
Yeah. I think it's always been a compromise or an understanding or whatever on how it fits in with the family.
Yeah.
And as long as one person's not totally obsessed and doesn't understand, as long as you both understand that, you know, we've got things to do today, so you can't, you know, and I'll say, well, that's fine, because what I would normally do on a Tuesday, I can go and do it on Wednesday, or
exactly.
And if I give her enough notice that I want to meet, today's meeting, for example, you know, she would have never said, if I told her last week that we're having this at 3:00 this afternoon, then we worked around what to do this morning, and that's fine, got everything out of the way. And
it's compromise, isn't it? Relationship 101.
It is, and that's why we've been married for so long.
I love it. So before we wrap up, what do you think running has given your life that you wouldn't have had you not, you know, decided to really take it on all those years ago and kept doing?
A few things in the long run. It's one, I've been healthy all my life. I think that's the luckiest thing. Like, I've got to nearly 70 years old, except for We used to go and have a medical when I was a bus driver. We used to go and have a medical every year, and nothing ever changed.
Yeah.
I don't get sick. I don't take any pills. I don't have to worry about not being able to do what I like. So that's always been the, and I've always been I would say, I've probably been a pretty balanced personality. I don't go, I don't have highs and lows.
Yeah.
I'm pretty tolerant of other people. Yeah, like I can accept people for being how they are and who they are, and I understand all that.
You think running's helped you maintain that?
Mentally,
because of the health elements of it.
Mentally, it's just kept me on the level. It's I don't get frustrated with people. I get maybe annoyed, but I don't get frustrated, or I get frustrated and don't get annoyed, or whichever way you want to put it. I don't. I understand all those things. And then of course we've done a fair bit. I've only been outside Australia once running, and that went to New Zealand, but that was only just because of that opportunity, and I've just haven't had a desire to go overseas. I'm not that sort of a traveller, but we've been at a lot of places around Australia that I'd never ever been to running wise. Been up a lot of good mountains and a lot of good places, met a lot of wonderful people. So, if I'd have been stayed at home and done nothing, then wouldn't have had all that.
Missed out.
Yeah, missed out. And like I've seen some in the running world. I've sort of been around where there's been a lot of, I lived in Canberra, and Robert D. Costello used to say "G'day, Steve" to me all the time when we see him out in the trails and those sort of things. And I ran on the track. I did track running when Yanis Kouros was breaking world records. In ultra running around the track. I've met him a few times. I understand some of those people, and been around a lot of fabulous people, especially, and sort of it's been. I wouldn't have changed it. I wouldn't have changed what I've done.
Yeah.
From that point of view, I'm not in the running world. I won't go back and regret that I didn't do anything that I tried to. Not that I was any good at some of them, but at least I had a go.
That's it.
And that's all it was about. Except the fact that you're not going to be an Olympic runner and that sort of standard. So except the fact that you're going to be middle of the packer and
you enjoy it.
And you're not going to finish last, but you're not going to finish first. And as I said, it doesn't matter whether you finish 10th or 80th, it's still finishing. Starting is probably the important thing, and finishing is the next important thing. So see what happens.
That's awesome.
It's all good.
It is. All right. Before we wrap up, and before I ask you for some beginners tips, because I've kept you ages so much so it's got dark where you are. Anyway,
it has.
It's quite funny what you get early.
Oh,
Is there anything about running, so this isn't the beginner tips, but just in running in general, that you would like to share that we haven't touched on in our journey through your life?
Beginner's trip.
So I'll ask you about some tips for beginners in a minute, but just for
I think
just running in general.
A little while ago, we had the girls from the physio place in Hobart had a little series of sessions at Hobart Trail Running on a Wednesday night, and they were really good because what it did was reinforce that what I'd been doing all my life is what they are teaching people now. So the real basics of running, the old 10% rule: don't increase anything by more than 10%. Don't do too much too soon. You can't increase speed and distance and elevation and time on feet all at the same time, because something is going to give. And if you get the basics right, then you won't get injured. And not being injured, I think, is the biggest secret to success in running. If you're forever fighting injury, which then leads to which means that then you leads to doing too much because you've missed out on things. So you do too much and then you get injured again.
Yeah.
And if you do too much and run yourself down, then you start to get sick. You catch any little disease that's going around. People come in and sneeze, and you'll catch a cold, and that'll put you out again for another 3 or 4 days. Or a week. You'll get the flu. That'll put you out for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
That's, and we're not even mentioning COVID, so we don't mention that. So just basic sickness things. If you stay healthy enough, then you can run for a long time.
Yeah, I love it.
And a little bit with you going out, or put the raincoat on and go out, experience all the seasons. Don't be frightened to put the coat on and run in the rain, or don't be frightened that it's too cold. So just put another layer on and a pair of gloves and a beanie and go.
And
for
I
a
would
run.
say get changed as soon as you finish. Like, to me, that's
Yeah,
for me.
exactly.
If I got wet, and especially sweaty or rain, if I just change my top, I don't actually have to change my bottom necessarily, but it's usually my top, because that's where you get your chill. That's through your chest.
Yeah, those sort of things. If you can go and have a quick hot shower. And the other thing, I haven't mentioned this, but I've always been a big advocate for cold water recovery.
Oh, wow.
So
that's interesting.
Always. And it goes back to, I read it in a book. And it was a Robert D. Costello wrote a column in a triathlon book way back in about the 1990s. Where were we living in 1990s? Or living in Canberra. It was in a triathlon book, left on a bench somewhere at a running event. Wow. And I read this column about he used to, when he was running his best marathons, called time marathons, he used to go home, because he lived in Chapman. I knew where his house was. He used to go home and put the cold water in from the hose over his legs, because Canberra water in winter is cold.
I bet.
Cold, freezing cold.
Yeah.
And he used to put the cold water over his legs. So I'd lived about 1 kilometre from I worked about 1 kilometre from the Murrumbidgee River in Canberra, so I was only about 4 k's from home. And I used to go down to the Murrumbidgee at Pine Island, it was called, and summer and winter, and just go and stand in the cold water for 10 minutes, so 12 to 15 minutes.
Like that really helped?
And unbelievably does it help.
Interesting.
It is one of the secrets to running recovery you will ever get. It just chills down the cells in the muscles. Cold, not hot. The physio people will all say hot water. I always say cold water, and the colder the better. And to me, it's the same as the footballers with their ice baths.
Yeah, they go into the ocean or the ice bath.
In the ice baths. What do you see after a horse has ran in a race? They put the hose on him. What do they do on a Sunday morning? They take the horse down to the beach and take him for a walk in the ocean. And it's the same thing. And sure, the water will be cold. It won't be cold enough in summer. The water temperature in Bass Strait or the Derwent or the Murrumbidgee are always a little bit too warm in summer.
Oh, I don't know about that. I feel like I've got less tolerant the older I've got with the cold water.
You can get used to that. If the water temperature is about 18 or 19 degrees, it's too warm. Bass Strait at the moment is 14.5 degrees.
It was
really? The other day down at one of the girls down at Penguin, when I was down there the other day, said the Bass Strait temperature is 14.5, still fractionally too warm.
I grew up on King Island.
Yeah,
it always felt cold there.
It's cold.
Always felt cold.
And the Murrumbidgee was, look, if you feel as though you've got to, it's too cold. If you get in for 30 seconds and it gets to be really painful, just get out. Wait for the pain to go away. Get back in again. 1 minute. Get back out. Wait for the pain to go away. Get back in. After that,
you're done.
You don't. It's you get used to the cold and staying there as long as you can. Yeah. Cold water recovery is. And we haven't really touched on it, but recovery is probably the second biggest lesson that I would give anybody in running. Because if you can do the training today, but if you can't recover to run again tomorrow, then your consistency goes out the door, because you're back to starting again the day later. It's a bit like running up and down mountains. You don't get injured running up or walking or power walking up a mountain. You get injured from going down. That's where you get sore, your knees get sore. So you've got to go and recover. So if you can't get that part of it right, then you can't go and repeat it the next day or the day after that. So if you can't get that part right, that's when you get injured. You'll finish up with injuries if you can't get recovery right.
Yeah, right.
And then you try and do too much. And that's why you have a look at my Strava. I do 4,000 metres of uphill every week.
Wow.
200,000 metres of uphill last year, and I didn't get sore spots. Nothing. Didn't get sore. Didn't get tired.
That's amazing. Well, there's certainly something for all of us to learn there, isn't there?
Well, it's pretty straightforward, and it doesn't get much coverage. I think I read Henny's book on the guide to trail running or something, and she didn't put a real lot of mention into recovery. A lot of it was stretching and that sort of thing, but it doesn't help the muscles actually recover.
Mm.
And I've always been, that's been my biggest thing. And you always see me putting up photos of down in the river, standing in the cold water.
In the cold water.
Yeah. And the colder it is, the better. It's not, you don't have to be stupid, but once your body goes numb, then it's the benefits start to be there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I'll have to give that a go. I'll go walk into the Tamer, which I've got.
Well, that'll do if you can find a nice clear spot. I mean, we're not talking swimming. We're only talking waist deep, standing.
Yeah.
Just, don't forget where all your workhorse muscles in your body are sort of from the lower back down through your glutes, down through your hamstrings. So
yeah,
we're not swimmers. We don't have to get into the cold water up to our shoulders. We're not.
Yay.
Oh, no, that's silly.
Oh, too cold. All right, Steve, it has been amazing to get to know you. Before we go, what would you say to someone who came and said to you, Steve, I want to start running, and these, especially these mountain runs that you do? What would you tell them? How do you get started? How would you tell someone to just get started?
Oh, look,
the beginning.
Yeah, just find something that's not too hard, and just go and find yourself. You don't have to train like an elite. Just go and do it, and the more you do it, the better you'll get, and the easier it'll get.
Yeah.
And then just slowly, gradually, consistently do a little bit more.
Yeah.
And don't forget to have a few rest days in there somewhere, just to
recovery.
Yeah. And then you will find the thing that you're best at, not necessarily good at, the thing that you're best at.
And you enjoy, because if you're good at something, or at least you feel like you are achieving, you want to keep doing that, don't you? We all like to keep doing something we feel like we're doing well.
At some point you will plateau and feel as though you're not getting anywhere, and that's the time to start to persevere, even at that level.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden something will happen, and you'll start the improvements again. They will come. But you have to plateau, and you have to just be persistent.
Yeah.
And be consistent.
Yeah, consistency is so important, isn't it?
Yeah, and that's all there is to it. Other than that, 10% rule. Yeah. Don't do anything, don't exceed too much. Don't do too much too soon.
Yeah.
And then sooner or later, I mean, people will start, not necessarily with trail running, but people will find that they're good at some part of running. You'll find that you might be, 5K park run might be what you are really good at, but you can't run 10K. Or you can run 5K, but you can't run a half marathon, because, not everybody is built to run hills, and not everybody is built to run road, and not everybody is built to run, fast.
Sooner or later, built to run.
But everybody is built to run. That is exactly right. Exactly right.
Yeah. I love that.
And in the long run, it's all about do it because you enjoy it, not because you want to be, because your friends do it, or, you want to do it. You want to do it because you love it, and it becomes part of your life. It just becomes something that you look forward. You got to look forward to it. You don't want to be there obsessed, or you don't want to become what's the word?
Make it a job. Make it a
it's
task.
Not a job. It's not a task. It's something that you think, I
can't wait till I go for my run.
And don't be obsessed with running it. Just remember that walking is part of running.
Yes, that's true.
And running is part of walking. So, except if you're running a marathon, and this is the difference between road and trail.
Yeah.
If you're running a 10K or a half marathon, or even a marathon with a big group of people around on the road, you wouldn't be seen dead walking, unless you don't want to be seen walking in a road event, but unless you really, down the back and nearly had enough.
Yeah.
But if you're on a trail and you start walking, people say, "Oh, geez, they're smart, aren't they?"
That's right.
that is really the clever thing to do, is to walk up the hills and jog down the hills.
They're conserving.
Yeah, you're playing the smart game. So just be smart about what you do. Yeah. Just think about what you're doing and why you're doing it, and
that's awesome.
Just get out there and enjoy it. And don't forget to take the camera. Take some photos.
Yes.
Let everybody know what you're doing.
That's right. Share it far and wide.
Share it and make them jealous that they are still at work when you're out running through the week.
I love it. All right, Steve, don't jump off because I want to talk to you off the recording as well.
Yep.
But
no worries.
Thank you so much. I really have enjoyed our conversation, learning more about you. And I feel like I don't go up enough hills. That's what I feel.
No. Oh, we love it. We found something that I'm good at. Something I enjoy.
It's beautiful. So thank you for sharing your time with us.
No worries.
As I said,
I hope you found it interesting. I hope you find the people that listen to it will find it interesting as well.
I'm sure that
very good. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to the Fit Mind, Fit Body podcast. I'd love to talk to you about your running journey. Send me a message on Facebook or on the website and let's do it. I also wanted to let you know that I've created an email list so you won't miss any podcast episodes. You'll find details in the show notes and on the Fit Mind, Fit Body website, along with a bunch of resources on mindful running. They'll help you to get and stay mentally and physically fit. And I'll see you there. Plus, I'll be back here in your podcast player a few times a week. Hit subscribe so you don't miss an episode. And before you go, I'd really appreciate it if you would leave a review. It'll help more people to find the podcast and get inspired to start running and ultimately to improve their life. See you soon.